Venezuela says it will raise a complaint with the United Nations about comments President Donald Trump made regarding U.S. covert operations there. Speaking to reporters on Wednesday, Trump confirmed he has authorized the CIA to conduct covert operations inside Venezuela. The Venezuelan government says Trump's statement is a violation of international law and the UN Charter. In recent weeks, the U.S. military has carried out strikes against boats Washington says are smuggling drugs in the Caribbean.
Why did you authorize the CIA to go into Venezuela? And is there more information you can share about these strikes on the alleged?
Well, I can't do that, but I authorized for two reasons, really. Number one, they have emptied their prisons into the United States of America. They came in through the they came in through the border. They came in because we had an open border policy. The other thing are drugs. We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela. And a lot of the Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea, so you get to see that. But we're going to stop them by land also.
Rebecca Hanson is an associate professor in the Department of Sociology and the Center for Latin American Studies at the University of Florida. She joins us now from Gainesville in Florida. Thank you for your time. So Trump's now openly saying that the CIA is active in Venezuela and even hinting at strikes on its land. How big of a deal is this escalation?
Look, I think that this is significant if we embed it in the second Trump administration's recent policy toward Venezuela, right? So in contrast to his first administration, Trump has not followed Rubio's hardline approach since coming back into office. He hasn't shown much interest, actually, in removing Maduro since he came into office in January. So this is significant in terms of his kind of turning back to considering Venezuela in his policy agenda. But I don't think that we should consider this to be a direct call to war in Venezuela. I'm sure that people have interpreted recent bombings of supposed drug shipments in the Caribbean as evidence that the Trump administration is implementing some kind of strategy to remove Maduro, but I don't think that's quite right. I think a lot of this, even this announcement about CIA deployment in Venezuela, it has a lot to do with political theater that has much to do with a domestic audience as an international audience. And it's not clear that Trump is actually interested in any kind of long-term deployment of military in Venezuela. So it's a significant...
Apologies, Rebecca. The fact that U.S. forces have already hit 5 boats, killing dozens, most of them linked to Venezuela. How solid is the intel behind these deadly operations?
Well, first, we don't actually have any information about what type of intel the Trump administration is working off to bomb these ships because they have not publicized any of that information. What we do know is that it's highly unlikely that these ships were involved in any kind of drug shipments to the United States. And this is for a couple of different reasons. Mostly because the ships that are being bombed, first, are not in any way linked to the Venezuelan government, but they're what are known as go-fast boats in Venezuela that are basically shipping boats that are kind of refitted to be able to make the trip between the Venezuelan coast and Trinidad and Tobago, sometimes with small drug shipments, but also with migrants, oil. So there's a number of different things get trafficked between Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago. So it's highly unlikely. It's not even really possible that these ships would have been able to make the trip from Venezuela to the United States. So first, we don't really know what kind of intel the U.S. government is working with to justify these attacks. But what we do know suggests that these boats have nothing to do with drug shipments from Venezuela to the United States.
The CIA has a very long, messy history in Latin America. It's been involved in coups, assassinations, regime change. Are we watching that playbook resurface here?
Again, I think we have to be careful with comparisons with the Cold War. Again, it's not clear that just because the Trump administration is performing these more aggressive tactics, it is actually interested in any kind of like long-term engagement, military engagement in Venezuela. In fact, the narrative that the Venezuelan opposition has long fed the Trump administration is that a sort of maximum pressure campaign could result in Maduro stepping down himself without actually even having to deploy troops in Venezuela. So arguably, this could just be one strategy in this maximum pressure campaign. But I think it's also incorrect to make these comparisons because this is not at all about ideology for Trump, right? And that's very much so what Cold War era tactics were about. I'm not even sure it's about ideology for Rubio. He clearly wants to remove the Venezuelan government and also the Cuban government, but there doesn't seem to be any clear ideological motivations behind this strategy.
Okay, interesting to get your perspective. Rebecca Hanson, Associate Professor in Department of Sociology and the Center for Latin American Studies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.